Hi everyone, welcome to our topic 5 video. In this video we will be talking a bit more, we've started a little bit, but we'll be talking a bit more about how we can synthesize the various elements of this course. So I want to begin by talking about your second journal assignment, which you completed last week. In your most recent journal assignment, you compared three different literature reviews, and as you came to understand, the goal of the assignment was for you to recognize how literature is used to contextualize the research and that there are many different ways of constructing a literature review depending upon your goals. A meta-analysis, such as the one that Johnson and Johnson offer, will use the literature in different ways than O'Connor used the literature. And she, as you recognized, had to argue back to a key theorist in her field, Ogbu, as her research findings did not align with his primary theories and findings. Now, you will be reading two dissertations in the next few weeks. You will want to read them to get a feel for both the content and the structure of these dissertations in their entirety. Try not to get lost in the content. I'm glad that you read the articles for the content, but for those of you who I gave feedback that you focused in your second journal entry more on the content of the articles, I'd like you to go back and do further examination of the literature reviews. I want to ensure that you are looking at the structure of the different literature reviews. We're always reading for content to get a feel for, I picked different articles and things for you to read to get a feel for the vast array of content in the field. But as you read the two dissertations, Rebecca Shargel's and Debbie Miller's, I really want you to keep an eye on the way that they have achieved coherence. A coherence between the different elements of their dissertation. So this leads to the next thing I want to talk about. You're really starting to think here about the big picture, tying all the pieces of your potential dissertation together. As you saw from the articles you read, and you'll see within the Randolph article about literature reviews that you'll be reading this week, there's no one right way to approach a research project and a literature review. There are many different ways to frame your research question, to position your literature, etc. There is, however, one wrong way, and this relates to the concept of coherence and consistency among the different elements of your project. There should be a strong and logical relationship between your research questions, your literature review, the theories you draw from, your methods, and the results and the discussion. This will all be within your dissertation. A lack of coherence will negatively affect your research project. So this lack of coherence often emerges during what I keep referring to and hammering home is a nonlinear process of developing your research project. You first develop strong research questions and think about the methodology, and then you move into developing your literature review. This is what often happens. We get excited sometimes about particular pieces of the literature, an article or a theoretical piece that really sparks your thinking in a new way. So you then might start to shift the focus of your project. But what some people forget to do when they get really excited about a piece of literature and a new idea and is so crucial is then to go back and refine and revise your research questions accordingly. It's okay to shift your focus during this nonlinear process, but you need to keep an eye on the flow between your research questions, the literature review, and the methods. Do your research questions actually address what you say you're studying in the literature review and in the methods section? Do the methods that you have come up with actually help you to research what you say you want to find out about in your research questions? So you're going to be looking at two entire dissertations to get a feel for how they have achieved coherence. In the next few weeks, we will specifically be focusing on alignment of research questions with methods. And then as we shift into topic 6, we will thinking about the coherence across the entire dissertation. What is your epistemological stance? As I give you feedback on your research questions, you will see that we will be beginning to take steps to think about how there can be coherence between our research questions and our methodology. And once you start to consider potential methodologies, how you will make your questions actionable. They will further evolve as you think about how you're going to make them actionable. Now, this might seem a bit backwards, as ideally one would develop the most appropriate research questions and then consider how to best answer them. But it often helps us to refine our questions when we fast forward and imagine how we would collect data for any given question. So, just a bit more about your research questions. As I wrote in our revised research question forum on Blackboard, over the next few weeks, your research questions will go through further revisions. And you should feel good that you have gotten to the point of getting a research question down on paper. This is huge. Um, now that now they will alter, of course, as you begin to think more concretely about the possible methodologies for your study, how you will operationalize these questions, as I just said, how you'll make them actionable. In most cases, your very interesting questions need some further tweaks in order to become researchable questions. They're good questions, but they're not quite yet full research questions. When we begin to think concretely about how we would actually go about collecting data to answer our questions, our relationship to the question shifts. We will start to examine, can I actually study this question? Can I answer it through a study? How would I answer this question through a study? Now, I just want to say, please do not be discouraged. You are learning how to step into this long process of developing research. All researchers make many revisions to their questions and their methods. Also, keep in mind that by the end of this course, you will have the beginning kernels of a research project for your dissertation, but you have other research questions that will follow this one. So this is a very important beginning for you, but it is in no way the end. And we're going to practice through this course. Just a bit more about literature reviews. The rubric that Dr. Engel developed and the rubric on page 12 of the Randolph are good guides to what comprises a strong literature review. Your literature review sets the stage for your own research. In it, you will be sharing what you have done, what has been done out in the field. So you are leading into ultimately a rationale for why your research is important. Your research either adds to the existing research, fills a hole, something that doesn't exist yet, looks at the problem in a different way. You are situating your question within the broader literature. You are identifying the key methodologies that have been used by other researchers, and you're identifying the key theorists in your field. You are setting yourself up to be able to make a case for the significance of your research questions. So this leads into our citations assignment. As Randolph offers, you probably will not ever be able to look at every piece of literature that relates to your research. For the sake of your upcoming project, you will be looking at what he refers to on page 4 as purposeful sampling, the central or pivotal articles in your field. So what you want to do is make sure you are locating these works. And I have offered some suggestions in the previous announcement email, the announcement that's up on our announcement page of how you might go about doing this. Books are always fine to use as part of your literature reviews, as long as you feel that they are relevant and contribute to your understanding of the research and the theories that will inform your work. You will ultimately be reading 12 references for your final project. For the November paper, I believe is due November 23rd, you should have read 7 of the 12 and be able to discuss in the paper what you have learned from the readings thus far. You might only be at the beginning stages of making connections between all of the readings, and this is okay. For the final assignment, you will be weaving together all 12 of your citations into a mini lit review. Feel free to ask any other questions you might have to me as you go about this, but I wanted to clarify this. So just a bit as I wrap up this video about critiquing articles, which is an essential piece of your literature review. I have been encouraging you to speak back to articles, and I am glad in your journal entries that you have done so. There can be a tendency as we become further exposed to research to compare in our minds what we hope to do to the research we're reading, and this is understandable. If you read an article or a book for your research project and your inclination is to completely dismiss the study, I want you to take more time with that article or book. I'm trying to get you to see different structures and to consider the choices the researcher made. In the end, you might still decide that the study is a weak one, and this happens all the time, and that's okay. But before completely dismissing an article or research piece, spend more time digging into what the researcher did accomplish. What do you gain from reading this study? And in your lit reviews, you're going to want to talk about that first before critiquing a piece. As we move into topic 6, we will spend time hashing out different epistemologies. Perhaps you don't feel drawn to the study because the researcher has a different worldview. Perhaps it's qualitative research and you're more of a quantitative researcher or vice versa, and this is all okay. But what we need to acknowledge why a piece of research does not resonate with us. As a post-positivist myself, and we'll be talking about post-positivism in topic 6, what this means is, in the most briefest of terms, I believe that research is never a theoretical. It has been positioned by someone. I talked about positionality a few weeks ago. It's been positioned by the researcher. So take time to step back and consider, why did the researcher position the study in a particular way, and what does this mean for the research? The November 9th visual organizer assignment will help you to further think through the relationship between the various elements of the dissertation. Um, on a very final note, again, we haven't talked yet about the difference between qualitative and quantitative research, positivist and post-positivist stance. More on that in future weeks, but I wanted to bring attention to something that came up in several of your journal entries. When qualitative researchers such as O'Connor and Stokeman integrate quotes from participants into articles, it might look like it is anecdotal. Several of you referred to it as anecdotal evidence. In qualitative research, this is often the actual data, and often the researcher is working with very small sample sizes. Several of you referred to small sample sizes, and this caused you to doubt some of the research. You might have questions about how the data was collected and analyzed, and you should. I just want to give a heads up that in your literature reviews, you will be looking at many different types of studies. The small sample size, or purely drawing upon interview or observational data, does not in itself make a study a weak study. This might be the data. What we need to consider is, how is the data collected and analyzed, and whether the methods are the appropriate ones to gather the data. What are the implications of the study? These are the things we want to focus on. So more on this to come, and I know I've just covered a lot of ground. I look forward to further reading your postings.